All right. Hello and welcome everyone to the April 22nd, 2022 edition of the Kubernetes upstream marketing team or contributor comms subproject of SIG ContribEx. We are, of course, a part of the open source Kubernetes project, which is part of the CNCF, which is part of the Linux Foundation. So we do have a code of conduct that we follow, which basically says, be respectful to your fellow attendees and speakers. Basically be excellent to each other. Just wanted to get that reminder out of the way as usual. I don't think I see any new folks on today, so I'll skip the new introductions, though of course feel free to interrupt at any time if anyone wants to do an introduction for whatever reason. I already posted our notes doc in the chat. I think just about everyone was here for that. Does Zoom actually keep your chat even when people aren't there yet? Google Meet doesn't, but I think Zoom does. So I think everyone should have the notes. And I guess we'll go ahead and hop into it. And we usually start out with updates and big wins. Looks like Avinash, you have something?
Yeah, so in the table above, in the notes itself, there was an action item on me, which we had to have a new role of community meeting from comms team. But while having a conversation with Laura, Paris actually suggested us to have a new comms event role rather than having a community meeting for a role. So yeah, we need to have a discussion on that.
Yeah, excellent point to bring up. I saw that happen in Slack, and I thought that she had a pretty good point there. One counter argument to that is that it's easier to scope something when it's smaller. So I think the event comms role is a good idea. We could start out by clearly defining what we think the community meeting portion of that role would be. And then we can build it as we have other events to take care of. Like we'll talk about KubeCon in a little bit. I've got the spreadsheet for that just about ready to go. So that's technically an event thing. So that might fall under this role, but we'll have to decide what we want what the load of this role might have to be for the person who takes it on. And of course, our roles are pretty flexible too. We can put things under this role, but if the person who's filling that role doesn't have time to do them or needs help with them, they can always ask for help. So I think it's a good idea. And I think we can iteratively build this over time, starting with the contributor meeting stuff is basically my opinion. Anyone else like to share thoughts? Does that sound reasonable to folks? Ray's nodding. I'm going to take that as a very good sign. Ray knows what he's talking about. Cool. Does that sound good to you, Avinash?
Yeah.
Cool. I will put a note about that into the action items column then. Not just community meeting. I'm gonna strike through that. And while I'm fixing up the notes, does anyone else have any other updates or big wins that they can think of that they would like to share from the last week or longer if you haven't been here longer?
I do have an update on something.
Sure.
So 1 or 2 weeks before, there was a tag on comms from Paris in a thread where Josh and other folks were discussing about LWKD. So they wanted new contributors to come and contribute there. And I reached out to Josh And this Monday, the release that went out, I had some part which was it had some part which was written by me. So the features and merges, I wrote those part. So yeah, that's an
So
update.
this is a release blog that you helped out with?
No, it's last week Kubernetes development that
Oh, the
goes.
last week in
It's a week.
Kubernetes, right?
Yeah.
That's very exciting. Nish helped out with last week in Kubernetes. And you said it was specifically a portion about the release?
Yeah, it was. I'll give the link of that portion.
Yeah, that'd be great. This is really exciting to me because Josh had mentioned that he wanted help with last week in Kubernetes, LWKD, whatever the D stands for. He mentioned that he wanted help with that newsletter publication, whatever we want to call it, a while ago, and had reached out to us for that help. But then nothing really ever came of it. We didn't get more information about how we could help or what he wanted that transition to look like, if he wanted us to take over more responsibility for that. So this is exciting because it's progress on that item that we had a long time ago. Kind of a long time ago. So I'm excited to see someone doing a little bit of work with last week in Kubernetes, and you can maybe build on that to help us if we start taking on more of that work as well. So I'm guessing we'll get more requests from Josh. So knowing that you have some experience of having done that before is really helpful. Anything else you want to share about the experience, or did Josh say anything about future work or anything? Probably not. Last week in Kubernetes development, that's right, because it's about
after that I
integration
actually didn't had the time to have a conversation with him because I'm busy with my own stuff. So
yeah.
no more further updates.
Cool. Much appreciated though that you were able to do that in addition to all of the other stuff you're doing. Thank you. So I'll put in a note that that's exciting and we should watch out for future asks there. Should probably actually talk with Josh myself about that. Won't be a bad idea. Maybe not today. We'll see. Other updates and big wins. I think I started to think of something while I was typing earlier, and now I've lost it because it's 8 a.m. for me, as usual. Oh, we can talk about that. New items. I think I'll actually do that. I think I'll move our campaigns in progress section of our notes to below new items, because I feel like I at least tend to end up skipping new items because I get distracted by campaigns in progress, which is big these days because we have our table to track it, which I love. So I'm going to move on to new items. We can always come back to updates and big wins if anyone thinks of anything, because there was a new item in the Slack. Kind of hoping Chris might join since I'd seen him doing some things. I thought I would like to ask him about this, but I might ask him separately. But there was an ask in Slack about there's a blog post that they want to post on the contributor site, which I'm not super familiar with. Chris has been doing more with that, which is why I said that I kind of hoped that he would be here so I could ask him about it. What they asked for was just scheduling, just a date for it to go up on the blog. Does anyone here know of any scheduling stuff going on with the blog on the contributor site? Like, I don't think we have anything scheduled.
No, I don't think we have anything scheduled for a little bit.
Okay. So I think we can probably basically just be like, we can let this go whenever.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's best to just go ahead and do it, or if it's best to make a comment saying this can go whenever and maybe put a hold on it in an LGTM, something like that. opinions?
Good. No opinions.
Right. I will deal with that today then. It's been floating around my head for the last couple of days, but I didn't have time to really look at it and make sure that what I was saying, what I was thinking made sense. So thank you for the check. So I'll reply to that PR to schedule a blog on the contributor site. And Keslin to unblock. And I'll add that into our action items table after we go through them. Are there any other new items that people want to talk about? I think there were a couple of, there was at least one other request, I think, that came in on ContribEx this week, but I think it was like a tweet that I just went ahead and did for like the meet our contributors or something like that. SIG meet and greet.
We should also get the blog post for the community meeting for the one Nigel did in February out.
Yes.
I think that just needs a PR. So I'll take that on my plate. I'll just make the PR. We could iterate on that and then get that going.
Perfect. Much appreciated, Ray. Apologies to kind of not have worked on that with you. But your expertise in that area is appreciated. All right, so Ray to create PR for Nigel's blog posts. Yeah, that seems to have been another case of what we were talking about earlier with when you're contributing and you're asked or in a position where you need to do something new, it can be very intimidating. I think there was a bit of that in that workflow, which I think I've said before is why we try to help shepherd these blog posts. For a lot of folks who write them, they're contributors who may not have worked with the blog before and they might be very intimidated by it. So having someone to help guide them can be helpful, even though a lot of us have not actually posted blogs there before either. So that can be a little bit tricky, but thank you very much, Ray, for offering to help get that going again. It's going to be very late, but I still think it's valuable.
Yep.
It was like the first
I agree.
contributor or community meeting we did for this year. So
I also want to get it out before I do my blog post for yesterday's meeting. So
that is a good point. Yeah, I think blog posts have value even when they're late, which I should internalize for my own blog. Any other new items? Oh, there was one update actually that I'll come back to. Rajula messaged me this morning, I guess, and said that he's had to take some time off for a little bit, but he should be back next week. So we will get to his action item in a little bit. I think a couple of you were working with him on the automation blog tweet automation thing. So it sounds like you all might be able to make a bit of progress on that next week, and I'm guessing that you haven't, but we will discuss that again in a moment. Let's go ahead to our table. All right. So Hina, are you feeling better and a little better able to see now?
I actually, everything is still blurry, but my eyesight gradually fixes at the end. So last night I was able to, well, by last night, like a few hours ago, late into the night, I resubmitted my PR. So it's waiting for review, and hopefully this time next week, this action item will be closed.
Yay.
But right now I can't see, so you all are just a blur. If you want me to read anything, please read it to me.
Seems like a very long recovery time, and I feel for you on that.
It's a little bit miserable, but if I smile, it'll make me feel less miserable.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you hanging out with us, even though you can only hear our voices. And I think we're okay on that PR for now. There was one ask, I think, that came in where someone created an issue and then they pinged us on Slack because they couldn't find a way to ping us in GitHub, which is what this issue will fix. So that was a cool note that once we get that done, it will probably be helpful and probably be used. And also, at least some folks currently notice that that's an issue and have a different way to contact us. So
Okay.
yeah. So that's exciting. If you needed it, we could always have someone else get that started for you, but I think it's a relatively approachable first thing.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah,
if
I think
we
it
just wait, it'll
should
be
be
fine.
okay.
Yeah. I don't think it's urgent. So, I mean, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, it's basically it's now waiting for a review based on the changes I was asked for. So I made those changes. And
Yep.
if something does go wrong, I probably will reach out in Slack. But fingers crossed, it was a very simple change. So
Doesn't mean it's not intimidating, but
yeah. Oh, it's absolutely. I'm absolutely intimidated with everything I'm doing, including speaking in this meeting that's recorded and posted on YouTube. But that's okay.
but it's all okay. And we really appreciate your courage and everyone's courage and bravery and everything that they do here.
Thank you.
So sounds
That's
good.
it.
We'll check on that again next week. And the one below it is same thing, really. So we'll leave that be. And this is the Rajula thing. Avinash, you said that you asked him for updates. I think Rajula is offline right now anyway, so I'm guessing he didn't respond to you and also wouldn't have responded with anything beyond what he said already. I'm guessing. Is that right? Guessing you don't have anything.
No, I mean, just before you said about the Rajula thing, I just did a message to him.
Yeah. It's good for him to know that you're looking forward to doing that work with him. So has its benefits. So we'll check in on that again next week as well. I kind of like this, by the way, that we have some items in our table that live for multiple weeks, but they remind us to keep checking on them, which can be a real issue if you're not tracking things well. If you just stop checking in on something, then it doesn't happen. So might feel weird that we check on things for multiple weeks, but I think it's good. Chris was going to check with Matt about the Twitter Together issue. We actually did kind of a pretty good update on that last time. This, yeah, basically isn't going to be done until May. So what do we think we should do with this table item? It's worth checking in on, but it's not going to be updated for some time. I think I'll unassign Chris at least because we don't need Chris to actively do anything. I think I'll just kind of leave that note.
Sometimes, and everything works 75% of the time. Sometimes we'll like leave a note that says revisit in May, but it's always at the bottom of the note. And so we'll talk about it. And then and this is actually a very fresh example in my mind where we have the discussion and then we come to the end and we're like, oh yeah, we just discussed that we're not going to bring this up until early June anyway. Is it worth just writing that in the table to say revisit in May? And then if we are more diligent than what I was this week.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking. Unless anyone has any opposing opinions, I think that's probably a good thing for us to do. Yeah. The other issue here, though, is that the person indicated that it may not make sense to have this in Twitter Together. So we may still need to look into other solutions like GitHub Actions or something like that. That was what he recommended too. So there's got to be a solution there. It's not something that I spend time trying to figure out. Yeah. In the May. I wrote revisit in the May. Okay, so I've made a note to revisit in May, but also actually I think I'm gonna put this part first, the part about possibly needing to find a different solution. If anyone wants to actively look at that, I would like to put your name on this. If you want to actively look into GitHub Actions for automating tweet scheduling. So it would basically be removing a hold on a PR. So normally we would hold a PR in order to effectively do this scheduling piece, honestly. So we would type /hold in a comment, post that, and then the bot puts a hold on it so it won't actually be merged until we unhold it, even if it has everything that it needs to be able to go. So what I think the action would look like would be something that could do an unhold action via the bot at a specific time. Yeah. But it would take some work looking into would that solution actually work? What would it look like? All of that. I think everyone's pretty busy with either school life stuff or other stuff right now. So I won't assign anyone unless someone is like, I'm absolutely going to spend time on that this week. But we'll come back to that next week. Sound like a good plan? Cool. I will move on to the next piece, which is the role description for the slashed out community meeting interface role. Instead, we put events role here. I put an additional note at the bottom of the notes on that saying we'll work on this iteratively, and to remember that roles are not harsh lines. They're more like guides. So you can always ask for help if you need it. Are there any updates on the responsibilities for the community meeting portion of that, Avinash?
So it's what I think from this past experience of community meeting, there are only four ways of promoting this event, either 4 or 3, I guess, via tweet, KDev, and a blog. Yeah, so 3. Apart from that, I'm not able to figure out what else we can do in order to promote or in order to help the community meeting team from
I think
com
that's
side.
a considerable chunk of responsibility. So, and also just interfacing with whoever is running the community meeting, both from a like organizational, making sure the meeting gets scheduled standpoint, as well as hosting the meeting. Just interfacing with those people is a chunk of responsibility, as well as owning these different types of communications, which totally makes sense for our group to own. So I think that's it, honestly. As well as meeting owner host. Oh gosh, what do I want to say? Meeting owner host interaction responsibilities. That's definitely not the right words, but I'm going to leave it. Does that make sense to you, Avinash?
That does.
Cool. So you'll want to, should I remove that? Probably, yeah. So we'll want to just record in our repo, like the person who's filling this events role with regard to the community meeting will need to make sure that a tweet goes out before the meeting, make sure that a tweet goes out after the meeting, something like that. Sends an email out to KDev, similar to, give an example maybe, and helps to shepherd through a blog and maybe link to some information about blog processes. And then describe as well the meeting leadership, relationship management responsibilities. So like checking in with the meeting owner to make sure that they don't need anything else, checking in with the host to make sure they're making progress on the blog, all of that.
Can you tell me how do how do we tweet via KDev on KDev?
Oh, do you mean like the regular Kubernetes Twitter? Because KDev
No,
refers to the email alias.
yeah, I'm talking about the email itself.
Okay. I thought it would be something special. But after sending my first one like a week or two ago, what I've learned is that actually you just send an email to the email list. Like from whatever email you use to watch that list, you just send an email to it and it just goes. And
No.
we usually say like on behalf of. Yeah.
There are some email lists out there that if you're not the owner, it would go into pending. And so the owner or the manager of that list has to approve it. So
That's good to know.
I don't think the dev at kubernetes.io has that pending.
Nope,
but I know
doesn't
like
seem
the
to.
SIG docs mailing list definitely has that. So
That's probably a good thing.
but they'll let you know because the person told me, hey, this is pending. And then I just went in and approved it.
Cool. I think we actually did have access at one point to like some special account that had like a Kubernetes name on it that we could send things from, but it was way too much trouble to manage that account access. I don't remember any of the stuff that I learned about that anymore. So it's really better if we don't have something like that because it's something else to manage. But for KDev, I think it's fine to just send it from whatever account you use to watch the list. That's what I've experienced. But good to know that others are not like that. Does that make sense, Avinash? Any other questions on that?
Yeah, does make sense.
Okay. Yeah. And like I said, usually we'll put like the one that I sent, I said, from Caslin on behalf of whatever I was talking about group. On behalf of the community meeting organizers, or I did the contributor summit. So it was like on behalf of the contributor summit planning committee or whatever we call ourselves. So that's a tip for you and that we should probably put into the responsibilities that we put on GitHub. Maybe I should help you with that since I'm already having ideas about that. So I'm going to go ahead and actually put myself also as an owner on that. So I might start something there for you because I know that you're really busy right now. If I give you an outline, I think it'll be easier for you to fill it in with better details. Does that sound like it would be helpful for you?
Yeah, it would be really helpful for me.
Okay, so I'll try to do that. Hold that. Okay. Thank you, Avinash. So there aren't any other questions about the community meeting events role, which will work out over time. I'm going to move on to tweet about upcoming release webinar. That's again one that we'll come back to.
I just pinged the release lead.
Nice.
No reply yet, but if there is something scheduled, I'll send it over.
Yeah, that'd be great. It'd be great to at least know what month we should check back in on that.
Yes, yeah. It might be a month, it might be a few months from May. So
yeah. Actually thinking about it, if they haven't scheduled it yet, or like would have been scheduling it around now, they might not have been able to schedule it because the CNCF is so underwater with KubeCon
yeah,
right
I agree.
now. Yeah. So it might not get scheduled for a while. So we might, if they don't get it, if you get a response and they don't have anything right now, we should just say check in on this in June.
Yep.
Because it's not going to move until after KubeCon at the very least. I'm going to put a note here. Probably don't check on this until June. Probably check back in on this in June. All right. And we can confirm or change that next week. Or whenever you get a response on that. If you ping me, I'll fix it. Okay, the next one, tweet about feature blogs that'll come out after the release comes out. And the release comes out May 3rd. So
Yeah, so May 3rd should definitely have a tweet about the release coming out. And we have additional Docker Shim blog related blog, like the history of Docker Shim blog on the same day as the release. And then May 4 on for the next week or so will be a new feature blog. May not be every day, might be like every other day.
yeah, but that'll be the plan. Blog starting May 4th on some fairly regular cadence. Cool. So that'll be good to watch out for. If only we had that scheduling capability, we could go ahead and schedule the tweet for May 3rd. I dream of spending time to figure that out. Maybe someday I will, or someone will. Okay. So we'll check back in on that next week. We said we'd discuss it again. Because next week is going to be right before that happens. So it'll be a good time for us to start getting that together. We can at least actually go ahead and create that blog and put a hold on it, like I was saying, and then unhold it at the time if we want to. But we don't need to do that right this minute. So we'll talk about that next week. Review repo and look into adding a description of what roles mean to us and new roles. Chris, of course, has been out. Since I was saying I would help you out, Avinash, anyway, I should work on this as well. So I will assign this to me. Assigning myself a lot of stuff. It might not all get done this week, but at least it's an attempt. The next one is something I wanted to talk about, and a few people have already dropped off, but KubeCon EU tweet spreadsheet. There is a link in the doc or in our notes to the doc that I use for that. It's just about ready. If you wanted to go ahead and sign up for some things, I think that's okay. But the one thing that might change is I haven't actually checked the schedule for the times of the maintainer track blocks or how many there are in each day. So this is just copy pasted from NA last year. So the number of blocks of the maintainer track might change. But if you wanted to go ahead and sign up for things, I mainly worked on getting the pre-event tweet information down. Like we need to have a tweet that KubeCon EU's beginning. Registration opens up on Saturday or Sunday, May 15th. And a notice that the contributor summit is happening on May 16th. And then information about what's going on the 16th with some reminders about what's happening on the 17th. So a tricky thing with the tweets that we set up for KubeCon that I was thinking about as I was creating this is we need to do some reminders as well as some like, this thing is happening now. So I'm trying to note in the description if we are doing a reminder that this thing's going to be happening in the future, or if it's this thing is happening now. KubeCon Day 0 colo events. Probably put some notes in about that. I'm really excited that lightning talks are coming back. Avinash, you'll try to look at scheduling a tweet. Cool. I mean, it's always a good thing to look at. We keep saying that, and we've like spent small amounts of our brain capacity on looking at it in the past. But much appreciated if you want to look into it.
I'm actually working with Twitter together. I mean, integrating to some other projects. So I'll look scheduling also.
Yeah, there's some issue with the way that we here in the Kubernetes project do PRs because of the way that we have to fork the repo and then bring it back in. That like breaks the scheduling capability that was already in Twitter together somehow. I don't remember exactly how that works, but you might figure that out and understand it better than the rest of us with what you're doing with it. If you do, you can give us an overview next week, because I know I knew it at one point, but I probably didn't know it as deep as you will if you really look into that. So we could all learn from your experiences. I also went ahead and created a little draft tweet of the first one to give an example of what a tweet could look like, but I haven't actually checked that it fits in a tweet, which is why I have that column, which I think is very important. And then you can always find examples, of course, on the other example pages. NA is probably the best one to look at because I changed the format of the sheet a little bit for that one to add some additional stuff. Like the description wasn't on EU because I just did all of that one myself. So the basic idea of these, of course, is like if you're doing a maintainer track block tweet, then go look at the schedule for what's in that maintainer track block and summarize that into a tweet however you see fit. And you don't have to capture everything, but whatever you think is interesting in that block and people might want to know about. And we'll tweet about it. I usually try to tweet about it like an hour before the block starts or 30 minutes before the block starts, something. I had a process. I'll put all of the dates and times of the tweets in here later. And the reason that we do the spreadsheet, by the way, is because everything needs to be scheduled. So I actually put these in manually into like TweetDeck or Twitter and schedule them before the event. So we'll have a deadline on getting all of these drafted like a week or a few days before I'll have to leave for the event because we'll need to get all of that done. So this will need to be done sometime around the week of May 10th because I fly out that weekend. So it'll need to be done sometime before then. Sorry, I feel like I'm kind of rambling today. You can also find instructions on how to use the tweet planning sheet in the first page, which is called instructions. Any questions about tweet planning for KubeCon or anything? I think I'll add contributor comms in Slack once I've gotten the rest of the details sorted out for this sheet. So if you want to wait until then to put yourself in as an owner, that's perfectly fine. But like I said, a good amount of this is pretty nailed down. So if there's anything you're like, I absolutely want to do the tweet for the keynotes on Thursday, you're welcome to go ahead and own that. Cool. And reach out to me anytime if you have any questions on that. So I'm going to move on to our next item. Pernissoir wanted to do a SIG docs thing, but you're going to put that on hold until the end of the month. So I'm going to assume no updates there. So the next thing is there was a request for a review of a new katakoda that Harshita had made. I figured that nobody would really have time last week. I know that I didn't. So I put it as whoever is available and just put it on there. But does anyone want to review this katakoda this coming week? I have a little bit more time, but I seem to have filled it up with taking up other things. Does anyone want to review the katakoda? And she said to ping feedback directly to her. When I try to go to it, it's like, you need to log in to katakoda or whatever. So I have to figure that out. But does anyone particularly want to review this, have their name on it? Yeah, sounds good, Pernissoir. That was an update on the SIG Spotlight thing. If nobody wants to put their name by the katakoda review, I will just kind of leave it again. Cool. Sometimes that's how it goes. We only have so much capacity. Early May, get a tweet out to promote the batch focused colo. It's another thing to get back to. Probably need to do that like next week or this week. Probably next week. I'm going to make a note to come back to that on April 29th. We're going to be planning a couple of tweets with regard to colos anyway, so I might just add this into the spreadsheet actually. I'm going to say Kasdan. in a spreadsheet, actually. Cool. And the last one, that one was done, so I didn't remove it from last time. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Also, back to the CNCF webinar for 124 release. It has not been scheduled.
All right,
Yes.
so won't be scheduled until at least June.
Yes.
And it won't be scheduled in June. It will be scheduled sometime after June. So, yeah, I'm just thinking I might just remove that entirely since that's so far out. What do you think? Remove it from the table? Or do you think put it
Yeah.
at the bottom?
Put it at the bottom. It's going to be
All
in
right, put it at the
June,
bottom.
and the webinar will probably be in July. So
I'm going to put a note to myself to move to the bottom. Reordering the table is an action item for myself. Hopefully I'll just remember from that. I don't want to make it another section in the table that I need to reorganize. So I'll try to do that after this meeting. All right. So that was that. The one other thing we can do is go through there's plenty of other things we can do, but another thing that we probably should do more often, though the table in our notes has kind of taken it over, is look over our tasks board. So I'll look over that real quick. There is the only things we have in progress are two things. Article 3 from APAC Meet Our Contributors blog series was in progress. I don't know if that went out. Is anyone involved with that effort here?
No, actually, folks who are leading the effort are quite busy with the release currently, Deva and Priyanka.
Okay.
So it's going slow at the moment, and we are changing some roles in the team to get those things started again efficiently.
Okay. Sounds good. People get busy. This is how open source work goes. Sometimes you're busy and doing a lot of things, and sometimes you're busy and thus not doing a lot of things in the contribution space. The other one is just evergreen blog post, the blog post with regard to the community meeting, which we have much more detailed stuff on in our notes doc. Personally, I find our table in our notes doc a lot easier for me to maintain and work with and keep up with than the task board in GitHub. So I feel like the task board has been kind of obsoleted by that. If anyone else has opinions that they want to voice about that, we can just kind of leave it for now, but kind of keep in mind that if it continues on like this, we might even want to just kind of, I don't know if we want to get rid of the task board, but we often don't look at it anyway because we're looking at the table in the notes.
How about putting those items which are not active currently and will be active in some time in the task board?
Possible, though the nice thing about having them in the table is that I know that we'll go over the table every single day. If we had far out items in the task board, that doesn't change the cadence that we need to look at it with, if that makes sense. Like we might miss them if we aren't looking at the task board regularly, because those tricky thing with far out items is that you need to remember them when you need to remember them. So I think it might actually be better to keep them on the table because I might forget about them on the task board and not look at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I have also thought about maybe I need to take all of the stuff on the table and move it into the task board regularly. But I think that's just an extra step of more work to put them into something that I don't like as much. So just a note on what I'm thinking about organization of stuff in this meeting. It's Not that we have to do anything with it, but I thought it was worth mentioning aloud. All right. So, oh yeah, we used to also always do a calendar walk to see what was going on in the community, to see if there was more stuff that we needed to pick up. Like if there was a community meeting coming up and we didn't have anyone that was engaging with the community meeting stuff, we could see it on the calendar and then put stuff on our to-do lists based on that. We have enough work as it is right now, so I'm going to continue to not do that. But also, organizational note, that is a thing that we used to do and could always bring back if we felt that we needed it. I feel like we actually hear about things pretty well now. People know that our group exists, so they ask us for stuff, and that's great. Tweet draft PRs. I should check on that. With Chris being out lately, I've been trying to be a little bit better about checking the contributor tweets repo. It seemed like he sent out a tweet this week, which I thought was interesting. There's nothing active in there though. Just the ongoing issues of scheduling tweets and tweeting KDEV messages. We don't have an issue in here about the blog post thing, but maybe we should. There's an issue somewhere about that. Issue walk, main project for contributor comms, and repos for new work. Yeah, see, so there's this whole section at the bottom that I usually just ignore because we usually don't have time of like all these things that we're supposed to check for work that we're supposed to be doing. Checking the main project for contributor comms for new issues, checking for blog posts that need review or that need a tweet about them. Where does that even go? Oh, that just goes to the Kubernetes blog repo. And there's K website, which we can check for issues that we can help with, and K community, and the K SIG contributor site, which does actually have work that I need to do on it, but we've noted that. So this is what Hina's action item is going to fix, hopefully, is we will have a group that can be tagged on GitHub, so we'll get notifications about these things instead of having to actually go and look at them, which clearly we're not actually doing. And I'm going to leave it that way for now because it is 8:53. I would love to finish up a little bit early if we can. With that, are there any other questions in that weird drivel of talking that was coming out of my mouth, or anything else that people want to discuss before we stop for the day? Sounds good. I'm going to stop recording. Thanks so much, everyone.